Jahre lang haben diese Parteien die deutsche Freiheit vergewaltigt, den deutschen Menschen geknebelt und geschlagen. 2 oder 3 Monate vergangen sind, wird euer Terror beseitigt sein, so wahr wir Nationalsozialisten.
As a political title, it is strongly associated with the Nazi dictator, Adolf Hitler, who officially styled himself Der Führer und Reichskanzler, the Führer and Chancellor of the Reich, after the death of President Paul von Hindenburg and the subsequent merger of the offices of Reichspräsident and Reichskanzler.
Adolf Hitler was born on April 20, 1889. Adolf Hitler was an Austrian-born German politician who was the dictator of Germany from 1933 until his suicide in 1945. He rose to power as the leader of the Nazi Party, becoming the Chancellor in 1933 and then taking the title of Führer und Reichskanzler in 1934. During his dictatorship, he initiated World War II in Europe by invading Poland on September 1, 1939. He was closely involved in military operations throughout the war and was central to the perpetration of the Holocaust, the genocide of about 6 million Jews and millions of other victims. Hitler was born in Braunheim in Austria-Hungary and was raised near Linz. He lived in Vienna later in the first decade of the 1900s and moved to Germany in 1913. He was decorated during his service in the German army in World War I. In 1919, he joined the German Workers' Party, DAP, the precursor of the Nazi Party, and was appointed leader of the Nazi Party in 1921. In 1923, he attempted to seize governmental power in a failed coup in Munich and was imprisoned with a sentence of 5 years. In jail, he dictated the first volume of his autobiography and political manifesto Mein Kampf, My Struggle. After his early release in 1924, Hitler gained popular support by attacking the Treaty of Versailles and promoting pan-Germanism, anti-Semitism and anti-communism with charismatic oratory and Nazi propaganda. He frequently denounced international capitalism and communism as part of a Jewish conspiracy. Hitler's father, Alois Hitler, 1837–1903, was the illegitimate child of Maria Anna Schicklgruber. The baptismal register did not show the name of his father, and Alois initially bore his mother's surname, Schicklgruber. In 1842, Johann Georg Hitler married Alois's mother. Alois was brought up in the family of Hitler's brother, Johann Nepomuk Hitler. In 1876, Alois was made legitimate and his baptismal record annotated by a priest to register Johann Georg Hitler as Alois's father, recorded as Georg Hitler. Alois then assumed the surname Hitler, also spelled Hitler, as Hutler, or Hutler. The name is probably based on the German word hut, lit, hut, and likely has the meaning one who lives in a hut. Nazi official Hans Frank suggested that Alois's mother had been employed as a housekeeper by a Jewish family in Graz, and that the family's 19-year-old son Leopold Frankenberger had fathered Alois. No Frankenberger was registered in Graz during that period. No record has been produced of Leopold Frankenberger's existence, and Jewish residency in Styria had been illegal for nearly 400 years and would not become legal again until decades after Alois's birth, so historians dismissed the claim that Alois's father was Jewish. Hitler created a public image as a celibate man without a domestic life, dedicated entirely to his political mission and the nation. He met his lover, Eva Braun, in 1929 and married her on April 29, 1945, one day before they both committed suicide. In September 1931, his half-niece, Gail Robel, took her own life with Hitler's gun in his Munich apartment. It was rumored among contemporaries that Shelley was in a romantic relationship with him, and her death was a source of deep, lasting pain. Paula Hitler, the younger sister of Hitler and the last living member of his immediate family, died in June 1960.
Hitler was no Superman. In Vienna, he acquired his first education in politics by studying the demagogic techniques of the popular Christian social mayor, Karl Lueger, and picked up the stereotyped, obsessive anti-Semitism with its brutal, violent sexual connotations and concern with the purity of blood that remained with him to the end of his career. From crackpot racial theorists like the defrocked monk, Lanz von Liebetfels, and the Austrian pan-German leader, Georg von Schonerer, the young Hitler learned to discern in the eternal Jew the symbol and cause of all chaos, corruption, and destruction in culture, politics and the economy. The press, prostitution, syphilis, capitalism, Marxism, democracy, and pacifism, all were so many means that the Jew exploited in his conspiracy to undermine the German nation and the purity of the creative Aryan race. Hitler promoted the idea of the Übermensch, a biologically superior Aryan or Germanic master race of strong, tall, blonde-haired, blue-eyed Aryan supermen. The Nazis sought to breed such men through the Lebensborn program. Ironically, the only super characteristic he shared was blue eyes. Hitler was a 5 feet 9 inches, skinny, 155-pound, no one knows because he refused to undress for medical examinations, brown-haired Austrian. Adolf Hitler was involved in some other countries' carnage that people don't usually talk about, such as the Franco's trailer.
En verano de 2016 grabamos estas imágenes en España. Esta es la tapia del cementerio de Badajoz hoy, y esto una foto tomada en agosto de 1936. En esta carretera, aviones italianos y alemanes bombardearon en febrero de 1937 una columna de 150.000 refugiados que huían de Málaga a Almería. Aquí, en las afueras de Miranda de Ebro, hubo un campo de concentración. Era uno de los 185 campos en toda España. En este cementerio en Málaga hay 4.500 personas enterradas, asesinadas por defender la Segunda República. La Puerta del Sol, en pleno centro de Madrid. Tras sus muros se torturó a miles de personas. Turistas haciéndose fotos en Cuelgamuros. Sabrán que este es el mayor monumento fascista jamás construido, donde, además de Franco y de muchos de quienes lo apoyaron, fueron enterrados miles de republicanos. El Palacio del Pardo. Aquí vivió el dictador entre 1940 hasta su muerte en 1975. Franco fue uno de los principales responsables del terror. Sus aliados, Hitler, Mussolini y Salazar. Los crímenes cometidos siguen impunes. Todos estos lugares han permanecido mudos durante décadas. Ahora, las voces de las víctimas son escuchadas por la justicia.
Buenos días.
Señora
Elisa.
Elisa.
Ana Mesuti.
Sí. Encantada de conocerla.
Eta Máximo Castro. Verá, Argentinatik etorri da zuzenean zuekin egotera. Te estoy diciendo que has venido directamente de Argentina para estar con ellos.
Para darle una mano.
Bueno, entráis ya con el...
Sí, entramos,
¿Le acompañáis, por
entramos
favor?
Perfecto.
¿Le acompañas,
Sí,
por favor?
sí, entramos.
Pues supongo que nosotros no podemos entrar.
Pregunto.
Lo único que me han preguntado es por qué me llevaron a Zamora, cuáles han sido los delitos que he cometido para que me llevaran a Zamora y cuántos hemos estado ya, más o menos.
Y al recordar todo aquello, ¿qué ha sentido? Y hacerlo, declarar delante de una jueza, ¿qué ha sentido
Una
usted?
alegría tremenda, porque por lo menos hay posibilidad, no llegaremos a Nuremberg, pero por lo menos hay una posibilidad de que se haga lo que hicieron con los nazis y hagan aquí con los franquistas.
Hitler during World War I. In May 1913, Hitler left Vienna for Munich, and, when war broke out in August 1914, he joined the 16th Bavarian Infantry Regiment, serving as a dispatch runner. Hitler proved an able, courageous soldier, receiving the Iron Cross, First Class, for bravery, but did not rise above the rank of Lance Corporal. Twice wounded, he was badly gassed 4 weeks before the end of the war and spent 3 months recuperating in a hospital in Pomerania. Temporarily blinded and driven to impotent rage by the abortive November 1918 revolution in Germany as well as the military defeat, Hitler, once restored, was convinced that fate had chosen him to rescue a humiliated nation from the shackles of the Versailles Treaty, from Bolsheviks and Jews. Assigned by the Reichswehr in the summer of 1919 to educational duties, which consisted largely of spying on political parties in the overheated atmosphere of post-revolutionary Munich, Hitler was sent to investigate a small nationalistic group of idealists, the German Workers' Party. On September 16, 1919, he entered the party, which had approximately 40 members, soon changed its name to the National Socialist German Workers' Party and imposed himself as its chairman by July 1921. Truly, Hitler was no Superman. Hitler was a vegetarian who did not smoke or drink. Dr. Ernst Günther Schenk, who studied Hitler's medical record, said, Hitler's initial complaints were the colitis that had bothered him for years, a mild kidney condition and a problem with a leg injury suffered during World War I. Morel helped him with all three problems. From the date they met in 1937 until April 1945, Hitler had absolute confidence in Morel. Besides resisting a complete physical, Hitler refused to be X-rayed. Many of his symptoms were psychosomatic, Schenk added. Almost daily, he complained to Morel about numerous pains. He demanded injections of invigorating and tranquilizing drugs, complained of headaches, stomach aches, constipation and diarrhea, constant colds, insomnia and many other discomforts. He described every pain very carefully and he complained bitterly. He was given hundreds of injections he believed would restore his energy and believed he would feel better if he could execute the generals that betrayed him, but in truth, he probably had an irritable bowel syndrome, and the stress aggravated it beyond his endurance. Schenk said Hitler was prescribed 92 different medications, some of which had not been scientifically tested. Morel owned companies that manufactured 20 of the drugs. Hitler used many drugs, but he never became addicted to any one, including morphine, which was administered to him 25 times during 1943 to 1944, for his stomach cramps. But he was psychologically dependent upon the idea of drugs as magic. Before he died, Hitler was seen shaking, which may have been a result of Parkinson's disease or withdrawal from drugs. In addition, according to historians Jonathan Mayo and Emma Craigie, Hitler himself is believed to have two forms of genital abnormality, an undescended testicle and a rare condition called penile hypospadias in which the urethra opens on the underside of the penis. Another historian, Ian Kershaw, said Hitler avoided sexual activity because he feared catching an infection. Others, however, have said he had a healthy sex life and was involved with several women, most notably his mistress Eva Braun, and contrary to some reports, he never contracted syphilis. Schenk also had an answer to the question of whether Hitler was insane. He compared him to other mass murderers in history: Stalin, Franco, Mussolini, Idi Amin, Alexander the Great, Julius Caesar, Genghis Khan, and Napoleon, whose behavior he said cannot be explained medically or psychologically. He concluded, Hitler was not insane. He had a political obsession that led him to attempt insane things. The German people followed him because, like Hitler, they believed that they were surrounded by dangerous enemies. Hitler becomes a leader. Hitler discovered a powerful talent for oratory as well as giving the new party its symbol, the swastika, and its greeting, Heil. His hoarse, grating voice, for all the bombastic, humorless, histrionic content of his speeches, dominated audiences by dint of his tone of impassioned conviction and gift for self-dramatization. By November 1921, Hitler was recognized as the Führer of a movement that had 3,000 members and boasted his personal power by organizing strong, armed squads to keep order at his meetings and break up those of his opponents. Out of these squads grew the stormtroopers, organized by Captain Ernst Röhrmann, Hitler's black-shirted personal bodyguard, the Schutzstaffel, SS. Hitler focused his propaganda against the Versailles Treaty, the November criminals, the Marxists, and the visible, internal enemy number one, the Jew, who was responsible for all Germany's domestic problems. In the 25-point program of the NSDAP announced on February 24, 1920, the exclusion of the Jews from the folk community, the myth of Aryan race supremacy and extreme nationalism were combined with socialistic ideas of profit-sharing and nationalization inspired by ideologues like Gottfried Feder. Hitler's first written utterance on political questions dating from this period emphasized that what he called the anti-Semitism of reason must lead to the systematic combating and elimination of Jewish privileges. Its ultimate goal must implacably be the total removal of the Jews' exterior of the Führer bunker shortly before its destruction. Hitler and Eva Braun's remains were burned in a shell crater outside the emergency exit at the left.
The Holocaust and Germany's war in the East were based on Hitler's long-standing view that the Jews were the enemy of the German people and that Lebensraum was needed for Germany's expansion. He focused on Eastern Europe for this expansion, aiming to defeat Poland and the Soviet Union and then removing or killing the Jews and Slavs. The General Plan East called for deporting the population of occupied Eastern Europe and the Soviet Union to West Siberia, for use as slave labor or to be murdered. The conquered territories were to be colonized by German or Germany's settlers. The goal was to implement this plan after the conquest of the Soviet Union, but when this failed, Hitler moved the plans forward. By January 1942, he had decided that the Jews, Slavs, and other deportees considered undesirable should be killed. The path Adolf Hitler laid are what most leaders of today following. World War III is right behind us. What is your plan? What are you getting prepared for? To fight in the war? Or to stay alive for the new beginning? Remember what Donald Trump said. Thanks for watching. I hope you all enjoy my Radio Man. See you next time.